They say you never forget the moment your stomach drops. For me, that moment hit hard, right in the middle of our Q3 all hands. We were maybe 20 minutes into the meeting when Carter Finch, our VP, stepped up to present. Usual corporate nonsense, charts, numbers, buzzwords. I was halfway through my second coffee when he stopped mid-slide, looked around the room, and pointed straight at me. Everyone here brings value, except the guy who tanked our marketing strategy. It landed like a punch. There was this pause, 2 seconds tops, before the laughter started. Some people chuckled nervously. Others didn't bother hiding it. I didn't move, just stared straight ahead while 20 pairs of eyes turned on me. I could feel the blood rush to my ears, hot and fast. My jaw clenched so tight I thought I might crack a molar. I'd been at Ridgeside nearly 6 years. First one in most mornings, last one out more times than I could count. Carter had never called me out before, at least not like that. And he didn't stop, just went right back into the next slide like he hadn't buried me alive in front of the entire floor. I kept my hands under the table so no one would see them shaking, clenched so hard my knuckles ached. I didn't blink, couldn't. If I did, I knew the tears would come, not from sadness, from rage. The worst part, nobody said a word, not one voice spoke up. They just shifted in their chairs and looked away like I'd suddenly become invisible. Quick note, before we go on, tell us which city or country you're watching from. I wanted to stand up, throw my chair, shout something back, but I didn't. I stayed still, collected. I'd worked too hard to give Carter the satisfaction of seeing me crack. In that room, I knew I couldn't keep playing along. And the crazy thing, I'd been getting ready for this longer than I even realized. This wasn't the first time Carter threw someone under the bus, but it was the first time he did it to me. So I sat there, silent and boiling, while the meeting rolled on. But in my head, the wheels were already turning. That meeting ended, and I walked out like nothing happened. But inside, I was done playing dumb. I'd joined Ridgeside when I was 40. I'd just been laid off from a smaller firm that folded during a merger. Bills were stacking up, my savings were bleeding out, and I needed a win. Fast. Carter interviewed me himself. Back then he was all charm and polished smiles, selling the dream hard. "We're building something big here," he said. "You want in?" I did. At first, it felt like the right call. He gave me just enough leash to think I had real input. He'd hand me the bones of a project, and I'd bring it to life. Nights, weekends, airport terminals. Didn't matter. I was grinding non-stop. I'd crank out full campaign decks, rewrite strategy briefs, manage vendor calls, handle revisions, and guess who walked into the presentation room every time like he built it with his bare hands? Carter. In his custom suits and slick words, he'd slap my shoulder after meetings and say, "This is how careers are made, Russell." Like I should be thanking him for dragging my work across the finish line with his name on it. At first, I swallowed it, told myself, "Be patient. Your time will come." But the firelight pitch, that was the turning point. It was Carter's first time pitching without me backing him up. I'd built the deck, done the research, drafted the positioning, all of it. But he didn't bring me, said it'd be a tight exec-only setting. I didn't argue. I figured he had it. He didn't. I listened in on the Zoom recording later. What I heard made my skin crawl. He fumbled through half the data, misquoted projections, even mixed up the client's name mid-pitch. When they asked a question about the deliverables timeline, he gave them a date we hadn't even discussed. Then, to top it off, he closed with, "You'll be in great hands with my execution team," like we were just some faceless crew in the back room. I sent a quiet email to Firelight afterward, just a simple follow-up to clear the confusion. Thought I was doing damage control. 2 days later, we got the "thanks but no thanks" email. Firelight went with a competitor. That same afternoon, Carter called me into his office. Shut the door behind me. Didn't sit. "What the hell was that?" he snapped. I just blinked at him. "What are you talking about?" The follow-up. "You went behind my back. That's not your role." "My role is making sure we don't look like amateurs," I said, calm but cold. "They had wrong info." I corrected it. He shook his head like I'd just kicked his dog. "You overstepped," I laughed. I couldn't help it. "Are you serious right now?" He leaned in. "If I want you talking to clients, I'll say so." And there it was, all that building something big talk. Bull. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a ghostwriter. After that, things shifted. I stopped staying late. I stopped volunteering to jump in on other people's messes. I got real quiet, started watching more, talking less. And every time Carter opened his mouth in meetings, I listened to how empty it all sounded without someone doing the legwork behind him. He still strutted around like he was the reason Ridgeside kept landing accounts, but the cracks were showing. Little mistakes slipped through. Clients started asking tougher questions, and people noticed. That firelight pitch, he tried to spin it like we lost, because the market was saturated, but people on the team had seen the follow-up thread. They knew I'd tried to clean it up. Still, guess who caught the official blame in the next team review? Russell's messaging didn't land. That's what Carter said, to my face. I didn't flinch, didn't argue. I just smiled and started planning. I kept smiling that day, but inside, the plan was already forming. After Firelight, I stopped pretending I gave a damn about looking like a team player. I started playing a different game, quiet, careful, and completely under the radar. First move, I gave my direct number to the clients who mattered, not my work line, my personal cell. I told them, call me anytime. Don't wait for meetings, and they did. Next, I stopped CCing Carter on everything. If it didn't need him, he didn't see it. I handled deliverables at midnight, took Sunday calls without complaint, answered panic texts on Thanksgiving. No fanfare, no announcements. Meanwhile, Carter kept smiling for photos, posing on panels, and pitching like he was Moses parting the Red Sea. But I was the one keeping it all from falling apart. 2 years went by. Slowly, methodically, I built a network inside the company's biggest accounts. I didn't just know the main contacts. I knew their assistants, their pain points, their kids' names, their vacation schedules. By the time Carter noticed the shift, it was too late. 14 out of our top 20 clients were talking only to me. 11 told me, flat out, they stayed with Ridgeside because of my work, my speed, my accuracy, my follow-through. Not a single one mentioned Carter's name. He was a talking head. I was the operator, and I wasn't alone. Tim, our senior designer, was the first to admit it over drinks. I've stopped putting his name on anything. He doesn't even know how to open Illustrator. Then Harv from Analytics chimed in. He changed my deck title once and introduced it as his data strategy. I nearly walked out. Laura from Comms said it best. He takes credit like it's a job requirement. I don't even bother anymore. I just save my receipts. We weren't some angry mob. We were just tired. We knew what we were worth, and we knew we weren't going to get it as long as Carter kept playing king. But nobody quit. Not yet. The truth was, we couldn't afford to. Most of us had families, mortgages, student loans, and Carter knew that. That's why he got away with it. He played the long game, starving people of credit while feeding them just enough praise to keep them quiet. But here's the thing. He got sloppy. Started saying dumb things in meetings like, we don't need to reinvent the wheel, when the client specifically asked for a fresh rebrand. One time, he called a pharma exec dude during a call. I had to cover that one with a 3-page email and an overnight concept draft just to keep the client on board. That was when I realized this wasn't just about me anymore. This guy was a liability, so I started documenting everything. Not to take him down, yet, but to make sure if it ever came to a head, I'd be ready. Client testimonials, email chains, screenshots, voice memos. It wasn't a revenge plan. It was insurance. And I wasn't just hoarding proof. I was building relationships. The kind Carter didn't even understand. He thought relationships meant handshakes and steak dinners. I knew better. It was answering the phone at 9:47 p.m. and saying, yeah, I've got you. I'll send it before midnight. I became irreplaceable. Not because I said so, but because the clients did. Carter? He kept smiling in board meetings like he was running the show. But anyone paying attention could see who actually was. I'd even warned him weeks before in writing, but he dismissed it. That warning turned into a threat to his ego. And so, when Firelight collapsed, he lined me up as the scapegoat. So, when we lost Firelight and the board started asking questions, Carter made his move. He threw me under the bus, right there in front of the entire team. Tried to laugh it off, tried to move on, but I didn't move. I sat still for one more slide, just long enough to let the room think I'd swallow it. Then I stood up, calm, slow, no rush. 20 heads turned again. But this time, I met their eyes. I walked up to the front, past Carter, past the clicker in his hand, past the stupid smiling headshot of him on slide 7, reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a thick manila folder, dropped it on the table in front of the executive team, loud enough to cut through the whispers. For the executive team's review, I said, clear, measured, loud enough for the back row. Carter froze. The room went dead silent. Nobody laughed this time. I didn't explain, didn't argue, just turned, walked out, and didn't look back. I left my badge on my desk, left my laptop plugged in. Didn't take a pen, a charger, nothing. Only thing I took was my coat and my dignity. I didn't even get to the elevator before my phone started buzzing. Missed calls, messages. First from Laura, then Harv. Then an unknown number that I knew damn well was Marcia Fenton's assistant. Didn't answer a single one. I walked straight out of that building, stepped into the cold September air, and exhaled for the first time in months, maybe years. I wasn't fired. I wasn't escorted out. I walked out on my terms, and that folder, it had everything I'd been documenting, the truth they couldn't ignore anymore. I was maybe 10 feet from my truck when I heard the door slam behind me and heels hitting pavement like gunfire. Russell! I turned. Marcia Fenton, our CEO, was hauling ass across the lot, folder in hand, hair blown sideways by the wind, breathing hard like she'd sprinted from the top floor. She wasn't the warm type, never had been. But right now, she looked borderline panicked. "You can't just leave," she said, stopping a few feet away, still catching her breath. "I believe I can," I said, leaning on the hood of my truck, arms crossed. She held up the folder like it weighed 100 pounds. "You really expect me to ignore this? I expected you to notice before I had to deliver it myself." That landed. She flinched, just slightly, but enough to know I'd hit a nerve. She motioned toward the building. "Come back inside." "No." Her jaw tightened. "Then give me 5 minutes." In my office, I waited a beat, then nodded. 5. We didn't speak walking in. I followed her past the glass walls and silent stairs, straight into her corner office. She shut the door behind us and didn't even sit, just dropped the folder on the table and said, "What the hell happened?" I gave it to her straight. Carter's been front-running everyone's work for years. He promises things we can't deliver, takes shortcuts, blames the fallout on the people actually doing the job. She didn't deny it, just rubbed her temples and muttered, "Jesus." I kept going. "You want the truth? 80% of our revenue is tied to clients I manage directly. They don't talk to Carter. Most don't even like him. They call me, I solve problems, I keep them here." She flipped through a few pages. "These client statements, did they know you were collecting this?" They offered them. After Carter screwed something up. Again, she shook her head. "This is bad. This is reality." She finally sat, quiet for a second, then looked me dead in the eye. "What do you want?" I didn't blink. Structure, real structure, clear roles, proper credit, and compensation based on contribution, not who can talk the loudest in a room. Her eyes narrowed. "And Carter?" I shrugged. "He can stay. If he learns to work in the daylight instead of stealing in the dark." She smiled barely. "That's poetic, Russell." "It's not." "It's a warning." Marcia leaned back in her chair, tapping the folder once. "You know this blows a hole in our internal model, right? Then it needed a hole." She stared at the ceiling for a second, thinking hard. "What you've laid out? If this goes to the board, they'll side with you. Numbers don't lie, but they're gonna want a solution, not just a takedown." I nodded. "I'm not here to burn the place down. I want to fix it." She stood again. "This'll take a week, maybe more. I've waited longer." Marcia stepped closer, folding her arms. "You've got one shot, Russell. If you want a seat at the table, you need to be ready to lead. No more shadow work, full exposure, real accountability. That's all I've ever wanted." She held the folder tighter now, not like it was a problem, but like it was leverage. Her expression shifted, less panic, more calculation. "You'll hear from me soon," she said. I nodded once, then walked out, again. But this time, I wasn't leaving. Not really. 1 week later, I was back in that same damn conference room. Same chairs, same stale coffee smell. But this time, I wasn't sitting quietly at the side of the table while Carter played lead actor. I was standing at the front. Across from me sat the board, 6 of them, including Marcia. Suits, neutral faces, tablets in hand, no small talk, no warm-up, just business. Carter sat to the side, jaw tight, flipping through a printed packet of whatever spin he'd cooked up. Hair gelled, tie a little too tight, smile forced. Marcia opened with a line that told me everything. Today's about transparency. Let's begin. Carter stood first. Before we dive in, he said, like he was hosting a damn TED Talk, I want to clarify my role here. I've always been the face of client acquisition at Ridgeside. I bring in opportunities. The support staff executes support staff. That's what he called me. What he called all of us. He flipped to a chart like it proved something. Clients don't sign based on back-end operations. They sign because of vision, because of leadership. That's what I bring. He smiled like he just dropped a mic, then sat. No one clapped. No one even nodded. Marcia turned to me. Russell? I walked to the head of the table. No slideshow, no buzzwords, just a binder, tabs color-coded, printed contact logs, client satisfaction reports, internal emails, feedback summaries, account timelines. I placed it in front of each board member. No drama, just facts. I won't argue vision, I started. But vision without delivery is a promise no one believes twice. These are the 20 top billing accounts from the last fiscal year. Pages 11 to 25 are full logs of direct client communication. You'll notice which number they call every time something goes sideways. They flipped. Silence. I let it hang. No exaggerations. No guesses. These are their words. Client after client saying who kept them on board, who fixed their issues, who earned their trust. One board member, Patel, looked up. You're saying you personally manage all these? I nodded. 14 directly, 6 through my support leads. Carter isn't on a single contact string. Not one Carter shifted in his chair. That's because delegation is key. I didn't even look at him, just kept going. Page 36 includes a timeline of deliverables for the Firelight pitch. You'll notice who created what, and who changed the numbers right before sending it. They flipped again. Marcia didn't say a word, just watched. I closed with this. This isn't about revenge. It's about operations. Ridgeside built a system that rewards appearances instead of results. That ends today, if you want to keep the business that's still here. No one asked a single follow-up. We were excused, told to wait outside while they deliberated. Carter tried to talk to me in the hallway. You're really playing this angle? He said, low and tense. You think this makes you a leader? I looked at him. I think I already was. You just never saw it. He looked like he wanted to say more, but the boardroom doors opened before he could. We were called back in. Marcia stood. The board has decided to restructure part of the organization to reflect client needs more directly. Effective immediately, a new division, client development, will be created, reporting straight to the CEO. My hands stayed at my sides, steady. Russell Kane will serve as director of client development. I didn't smile, I didn't react, just nodded once. Carter stared straight ahead. Marcia continued. Carter Finch will shift to a new role focused solely on business acquisition. He will no longer manage client accounts or oversee delivery teams. There it was. No more stealing credit. No more hiding behind buzzwords while other people carried the weight. Carter's face didn't crack, but his knuckles went white where they gripped the armrest. Nobody clapped. This wasn't a celebration. It was a correction. We were dismissed. I left the room the same way I entered, calm, focused, sharp. But, I'll be honest, the look on Carter's face, yeah, that was priceless. 3 days later, we held an all-hands meeting. Packed room. Everyone from interns to execs, standing room only. The energy was stiff. Nobody knew what was coming, but they knew something had shifted. Marcia opened it herself. No jokes, no small talk. She looked around the room and said, Ridgeside is restructuring based on performance, contribution, and impact. Then she turned toward me. Please welcome Russell Kane as Director of Client Development. You could hear the breath catch across the room. I stepped forward. No speech, no victory lap. just a short nod. Then came the part that mattered most. Joining Russell in this new structure are Tim Riggins, Harv Patel, and Laura Kennedy as team leads over design, analytics, and comms, she said. That's when the shock turned into actual reaction. A few claps, a few whispered. Finally, Carter? He was standing in the back, arms crossed, lips tight. Marcia didn't say his name, not once. No title, no update, nothing. He walked out the second she wrapped up. I watched him leave. Didn't stop him. We got to work immediately. First thing we did, scrapped the whole client routing system. No more filtering everything through a senior manager just to pad their calendar. We reassigned accounts based on who actually did the work. Clients got a direct line to the people solving their problems. Next, pay reviews, quiet, fast, and fair. If you carried the load, you got the raise. Titles adjusted, bonuses issued. No politics, no waiting for the right quarter. Some middle managers didn't like it. Two quit within the first week. Others stayed and tried to adapt. Some made it, some didn't. We didn't slow down to coddle anyone. By day 30, client turnaround time had dropped by a third. Feedback scores were up across every department. Internally, it felt like someone had let fresh air into the building. People smiled more, laughed more, stayed late without resentment. And Carter? He was floundering. Without someone doing the real work behind him, he kept missing follow-ups, fumbling proposals, and walking into meetings unprepared. Nobody covered for him anymore. One afternoon, he knocked on my door. Didn't swagger in like he used to, just hovered, hand on the frame. "Got a minute?" he asked. I didn't look up right away. Finished what I was typing, then waved him in. He sat, fidgeted with the sleeve of his shirt. "I could use some support," he said. "Some of these accounts, they're not responding the way they used to." I leaned back, let the silence fill the room. He added, "I'm not asking for special treatment. I need help getting back in rhythm." I nodded once. "You'll have support, just like everyone else?" He looked relieved for a second. Then I added, "But no more ghostwriting your wins. You earn it, or you don't." He looked like he wanted to argue, but he didn't, just nodded and stood. That moment told me everything. He finally understood. This wasn't his show anymore. Right after that conversation with Carter, the audit came in. Marcia had greenlit it a few weeks earlier, quietly, no press, no internal memo. Just a full sweep of account activity, staff contributions, and client feedback across the last 18 months. When the results dropped, nobody could argue anymore. 80% of top clients were working primarily with people Carter had never even acknowledged in a meeting. Staff he couldn't name. People who kept this place running while he polished up his slide decks. I didn't gloat. I just got to work. First thing I did was update job titles. People who'd been stuck with coordinator and associate for years were suddenly managers and leads, because that's what they already were, just without the pay or the recognition. Then we rolled out a new CRM system, transparent. Everyone could see who actually handled each call, who followed up, who delivered. No more hiding behind team inboxes or group credits. No more smoke and mirrors. The CFO hated it at first. "Comp looks inflated this quarter," he said, scrolling through the new budget sheet with a scowl. "You're raising too fast." "Retention's up," I said. "Churn's down." "Do the math," he frowned. "Still, optics. Let's talk optics when 3 clients walk because your people are underpaid and overworked." That shut him up. And just to prove the point, I brought him the numbers. 3 of our biggest clients, Firelight included, renewed their contracts early and expanded budgets across the board. 2 others sent in testimonials, unprompted, praising how responsive and relationship-driven the new structure felt. You can't argue with that. Meanwhile, Carter was still adjusting. He kept pitching. That part, I'll give him, he could still talk. And when he focused just on the pitch without the fake follow-through, he actually started landing clients again. Not as many, not the whales, but enough. He showed up to meetings on time, stuck to script, didn't interrupt. And one afternoon, during a new client kickoff, he said something I didn't expect. This campaign concept came together fast because Tim and Laura crushed the prep. Credit to both of them, I didn't react, just marked it in my notes and moved on. But inside, First time I'd ever heard him give credit to anyone but himself. It wasn't a miracle. He didn't suddenly turn into a selfless guy. But he stopped pretending to be everything at once. That was enough for me. The team noticed it too. Morale didn't just improve, it stabilized. People trusted the system again. They knew the right work would get seen, and no one could steal it on the way up the ladder. We weren't perfect, still had long days, hard weeks, but at least now the fight felt worth it. Because when you finally shine a light on the people doing the real work, turns out they don't need much, just honesty, structure, and someone who will say, yeah, that was them. 90 days in, I stood in front of the board again. Only this time, it wasn't about defending myself. I wasn't carrying proof or folders or receipts, just results. Marcia kicked things off. Quick summary: retention up, churn down, team turnover nearly zero. Then she stepped aside. Russell, she said, motioning toward me, walk us through what made the difference. I looked around the room, same faces, same suits, same tired expressions. But this time, they were listening. It wasn't some silver bullet, I told them. We didn't land a unicorn client or win some magic award. What we did was fix the system. I clicked through 3 slides, all data, no fluff. People work harder when they're seen. They stay longer when they're respected. That's it. We matched titles to work. We gave credit where it belonged. And we stopped pretending a good pitch replaces real delivery. I paused, let it land. Support staff didn't save this place. The people you used to call support were the business. You just didn't know it. Nobody interrupted, not even Carter. He was there, sitting at the far end of the table, quiet, respectful. He'd found his spot lately, still pitching, still loud, but no longer taking up space that wasn't his. A board member asked, "Are you satisfied with the progress?" I didn't fake it. Progress, not perfection, I said, but we're on the right path. That seemed to be enough. The meeting wrapped. The board thanked me. Some nodded. One of them even clapped quietly as I stepped out. I figured that was it. But that afternoon, Marcia called me into her office. She didn't waste time. "We want to offer you a larger role," she said, sliding a folder across the table. "VP of Client Strategy, Equity, Voting Rights, full ownership over how client relationships are built and managed." So I opened the folder. The number on the comp sheet almost made me laugh. It was triple what I'd been making. "Take the weekend," she said. "Think it over." I left without committing, drove home, sat in the driveway for a solid 10 minutes, just staring at the folder. It wasn't the money that gave me pause. It was the weight of it, the influence, the control, the visibility. No more backseat, no more invisibility. If I said yes, no one, not the board, not Carter, not some new hotshot hire, could ever write me off as just support staff again. I took the weekend, thought about the long nights, the thankless stretch of years where my name never appeared on a single client-facing document. The years Carter fed off our work like it was owed to him. And I thought about my team, the people still in the trenches, the ones who only stayed because someone finally fought for them. On Monday, I walked into Marcia's office and gave a single word. Yes. No handshakes, no ceremony, just a contract, a signature, and a new title on the wall outside my office. Then I got to work, again. Quietly, I reviewed every department's comp structure. I sat with HR. I worked through promotion lists. I made sure every raise, title, and bonus that had been stalled or buried under bureaucracy got to the right person. If you did the work, you got the recognition. No more waiting for someone louder to stand on your back. I didn't broadcast any of it. No email blasts, no self-congratulatory posts. But inside the company, people felt it. They knew something had shifted for good. And that was the point. 6 months later, I stood on stage at our annual company meetup, Boardroom in Chicago. 200 people packed in, folding chairs, coffee stations, name badges, the whole deal. But the energy, different this time. Not stiff, not fake, just solid. I looked out at a room full of people who finally knew their work mattered. Tim was off to the side, laughing with 2 interns, showing them sketches on his tablet. Harv stood near the back, clipboard in hand, guiding a group of new hires through their first analytics demo. Laura? She was center stage earlier that morning, running a client roundtable like she'd been doing it for a decade. And Carter? He was sitting halfway back, tie loose, taking notes. Still there. Still trying, but, for once, part of the team. No spotlight, no swagger, just showing up and doing the work. I stepped up to the mic and let the room settle. A year ago, I said, I was the guy no one noticed until someone needed a scapegoat. A couple heads nodded. People remembered. Back then, credit flowed up and pressure fell down. People stayed quiet, kept their heads low. And a lot of good work went unseen. I paused, looked across the crowd, saw Laura give me a quick nod. Today, I'm here because we flipped that. We proved that real work speaks louder than flashy suits. That consistency beats charisma. That being reliable, being honest, being present matters. The applause started before I even stepped back. Not polite, not forced, real. I didn't smile much, just gave a nod and left the stage. A few people came up after, slapped me on the back, said thanks. But the moment that stuck came 5 minutes later. Carter walked up, didn't make a speech, didn't look smug, just stuck out his hand. You were right, he said. I shook it, firm but fast. I didn't need more than that. No long apology, no breakdown, just the words. Because the best kind of revenge, it's not getting even. It's being the one who builds something better, and then making space for others in it. That's how you win.